Right, welcome back. You are watching Standing on Guard. Of course, those stories, they set the tone for a conversation here on keeping the eye on the enemy, which is a standing on guard. And of course, I want to introduce also my panelists this morning. We have Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is a conflict expert on conflict transformation. Also, we have Andrew Franklin, he's a security expert. We have Professor Naomi Damba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KCA University, a professor for defense and foreign policy. And also we have Dr. Apollo Mashara, who is a criminologist from the University of Egerton. A very good morning to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, good morning.
Right. Of course, we saw those stories. Last week was a conference on countering terrorism. That was countering violent extremism. That it was a 4-day conference. And I know Dr. Ali participated in this particular conference. Give us the highlight. What really happened during the conference? We had so many countries, 29 countries attending this particular conference. Let's start with you.
Thank you and good morning. The CV conference that took place last week here in Nairobi was a follow-up on the Washington conference that took place earlier this year in Washington, D.C. to address and understand more issues surrounding violent extremism,
Yes.
radicalization into violent extremism and terrorism, and find better ways to address this scourge that has actually radicalized many young people into violence.
Yes.
And the conference itself comes hot on the heels after the realization that the military approach alone to fighting violent extremism and radicalization into violent extremism is insufficient, and therefore we actually need to have other approaches to complement the military approaches in order to address the issues of violent extremism in a more conclusive manner, or to contain the same. And so here we're talking about, and this was discussed at the conference itself, we're talking about a counter-ideological offensive so that we can take this war to the enemy, in the minds of the enemy.
And don't you think this particular conference was actually slow in coming? The realization that, yes, we've been using the military operation, and now we need to change strategy. Maybe I should...
No, I agree with you. Actually, we should have had this conference in 2001. At the moment 9/11 happened, we should have had this conference, and globally and regionally. So yeah, it's coming quite late.
Right. Franklin, what do you think about this particular conference?
Well, despite my best efforts since June 3rd, 4 days after the conference was publicized in the media, it was impossible to get an invitation, including meeting the director of the National Counterterrorism Center on the 16th of June at a German-sponsored conference on security, technologies, and infrastructure. It was simply impossible to get an invitation. And I think essentially the usual suspects showed up internationally. I find it rather interesting that it was paid very much by the United States and other Western states. I don't understand this, why we think we're only fighting with military means or police means, and more particularly, the focus on a war on terrorism, a global war on terrorism, is externalizing the conflict that we have here in Kenya, where in fact we have an insurgency that uses terrorism as a tactic. I think it does play into the narrative of certain individuals here and in the West that we're facing some global onslaught, similar to the war, I guess, the communist onslaught after World War II. But it really makes us take our eyes off the ball here in Kenya.
But don't you think at least this particular conference was a step forward? Yeah, it is good to realize that, yes, the strategy that we've been using is not working. How can we chart the way forward?
You're right, Debral. If we had a strategy, I would say you're correct. It is not working. We don't seem to have a coherent strategy on how we're fighting insurgency, how we're countering terrorism, and what we're doing regionally to find solutions to our problems.
All right. Professor Midambo, right now we realize we don't have a coherent strategy. you know, even the security officials, they grapple to talk about strategies that they have. All that we can see has been a knee-jerk reaction, you know, putting out fires when we have a terror attack. Yeah. From that point of view, you also can see the scholars are right now, they are weighing in. They're saying, yeah, pay the security officers well, so that actually they can concentrate on their jobs, and we cannot have also issues of corruption, you know, coming into play and compromising the security integrity of this country. What are the scholars saying?
Born, I agree with Franklin on one way that that we have what we call knee-jerk reaction to every incident as it occurs. Back to the terror attack on U.S. Embassy, we should have had a warning, very clear warning, and a real commitment to mobilize our people and develop a coherent approach. Now, forward to the Constitution, the new Constitution. The new Constitution has laid down very fundamental framework on which we can work together as a nation. Article 238, which set out the principle. Article 239 talk about national security. Article 187 talk about divided government and how we both the national and also the county government can work together. For instance, at this point, there is no reason why the governors cannot have a major role in chairmanship of their county and understanding what their county does.
So this means now we look at devolving security.
Exactly. The
so
institutions.
it should not be just you know, the mainstay of the government handling security.
It should not. It is everyone. The institutions which represent the higher education are highly vulnerable at this point. We have seen what happened, you know, recently, where students were massacred like chicken. At this point, I spent 30 years in the U.S. I was vice president of a major university in the U.S. And each university in the United States has a police force which has direct link with the national security system. There are about 12 layers of the system. Each system must work, must connect together. So, and we must be serious about mobilizing our people to understand that you just don't react and then go back to business as usual.
All right.
Our life has changed.
All right. We see also the principal of Garissa University College.
Correct.
Is calling back the administrative officials and also the staff to go back to Garissa. And they're startly, you know, denying this. They're saying, no, we won't come back to Garissa. Yeah. We are not even assured of our security. Yes. Is this the wisest of fashion? Even the government says the institution is safe right now. What do you think, Dr. Apollo?
Thank you, Diba. Now for Garissa. Why should the staff go to Garissa University, especially support staff? You know, when we are in the university, the supporting staff are there to serve the students.
Yes.
So if there are no students, if there are no lectures going on, the staff have no business of going to hide away time in Garissa. It's completely useless. Even when we are in our universities, whenever the universities are closed, the staff idle around doing nothing. So the logic of returning staff, drivers, message, what are they going to do messaging for? So it's completely useless. So I don't know, I can't understand that logic. So, you know, they need not to go back. But having listened to my senior, I am a bit skeptical about county governments having any business to do with the national security. Remember, these guys are politicians. And if they take the issues of national security, they are politicians, and the time is coming when they will be holding all the security apparatus against their opponents. So, and the way the governors have been so far, they don't appear like they are, you know, too committed about anything. Neither education, nor health. So the issue of security is very sensitive. So for them to control the OCPD and the national intelligence is completely out of politics. So that's why I like the idea of having county commissioners running the government. Now, on the issue of the counter-terrorism conference, I was very optimistic that now a solution has come, because 29 countries are coming to Kenya with all the experience, and they will give us the solutions moving forward. But even after the conference, we are still where we were, despite the much effort that was taken at the KICC. For me, it was like another talking shop. Some of the strategies they talked about, are the same strategies we have been saying in this forum for all these weeks. So they came, they went just like an elitist club. I was in Mombasa conducting studies on extremism.
Yes.
And the people on the ground did not understand that there was a conference affecting them. So I can't understand why KICC, with the people from Egypt, with the university professors, Syria, Egypt, you know, Tunisia, it was for me a disappointment, because we have been talking about counterintelligence, military hardware, soft hardware, community policing, Nyumba Kumi. But, you know, they talked. Right. They have the documents. The reports will be written by Monica or whomever will write, but it will still be there. Just, you know, it's business as usual. It was another waste of good government resources.
Yeah, the issue is then, what was it, a closed-door meeting? I think security, I know it's a very ticklish issue, but also should the public really participate in this to really be aware on what is really happening?
I think there should be an avenue or a process that the public participates in the discussions on issues that actually affect them. And in one way, you might say that the conference, the just concluded conference at KICC, did not have that. There were a few civil society organizations participating in that, a few clerics participating in that, and then many other countries, about 29, that participated in the conference itself.
Yes.
But when you're having a conference of this nature, you really cannot, there are about 300, 400 participants in the conference itself. You cannot have a public conference or a conference where everybody just comes in.
At least there should be a day, you know, slotted for the public.
No, there was a training on Sunday. There was a training for the civil society on the best practice, what has worked, what has not worked in many other countries. And experts and practitioners were sharing their experiences on Sunday. So that's when those practitioners in Kenya actually participated in that conference itself. And going back, it was a kind of an intergovernmental process. So I didn't expect, and I saw that there weren't much participation from the civil society was there, but the participation was very much by country. So there were heads of delegations to do that. More or less what you'd see at the United Nations kind of conferences. But then that's a starting point. So what I would say, and I want to support some the panelists, that first of all, I support the way the conference was organized. I think it was for us to come up with good solutions, good recommendations, good discussions that would then inform subsequent actions. I think it had to be organized that way. But then what I want us to do is now we need to move beyond the conference rooms, the boardrooms, and five-star hotels where we are organizing these kind of conferences. I was in northern Nigeria a few years ago. We were dealing with the Boko Haram issues. And when I was in Jos, one of the young boys who apparently had left Boko Haram but was still hanging around, and I was having a discussion with him, and he told me, you know, look here, you people, you do your CVE in five-star hotels. It won't go anywhere. Come to us. You need to talk to us.
On the ground.
On the ground. And this is now what we must do. This is what we need to do. We have to go to the ground. What Professor Apollo is talking about, we have to go to the villages. And let us remember that it is communities that beat terror.
It is communities that beat terror. But let's get down to the communities that beat terror. And the incidences that we've seen in the past a few weeks. We start with Garissa. We have the Al-Shabaab sleeper cells. They get into a mosque. They are holding hostages there in the mosque, you know, drumming down their ideologies for hours on end, right? This is after the Garissa attack. And the question that then we raise or comes to the fore is, are we still remaining none the wiser when it comes to, you know, heightening security, especially these places where people fear, right? We are telling teachers to go back to Garissa. The Al-Shabaab were just there a few weeks ago, right? And this is after we had 148 students dying in that particular attack. What do you think? And then we have also a chief dying after that. They went to these particular mosques. They're saying we're targeting military, we're targeting police posts, military also barracks, and we're looking for chiefs, right? And a few weeks after that, we hear a chief has died in Wajir.
Debarral, this is nothing new. This has been going on since October of 2011, particularly into 2012 when civil servants were being abducted and were not returning from leave. What we've seen, in fact, 5 weeks after the Garissa University massacre, but shortly after the Obama visit was announced and confirmed for July 25th and 26th, is an escalation of al-Shabaab activities and operations, all conducted during the curfews that were in effect. And these were not just sleeper cells. These were 50, 60, 70-man units that were moving around, occupying villages, not killing anyone, but preaching, terrorizing the population. Whether anyone is killed or not, make no mistake, those communities are terrorized now. There were no security forces coming on the scene. No cavalry came to the rescue. Therefore, I think that al-Shabaab is intimidating communities and creating ungoverned spaces. On the night of 13th, 14th of June, there were 4 terrorist attacks, including the first attack ever on a KDF base inside our border. This is not in Amisom territory. This is not across the border in Sector 2. This is a change in tactics, an uptick in their operational tempo, and they seem to have the initiative as far as terrorizing and intimidating communities.
Then how do we explain also, just hot on the heels of that, is the Ethiopian troops with the 10 trucks actually going to a police station in the northern Kenya, and still we don't see any security heightening in those areas at all.
But the Ethiopians are our friends. So, I mean, I don't expect the KDF to attack the Ethiopians. I mean, I think that in certain parts of this country, historically, in the last 34 years, I can count any number of times since I arrived in '81, when the border has been less than closed, particularly when Ethiopians, whether it's the Derg or the new government, is pursuing the Oromo Liberation Front or anyone else. Sudanese troops.
Well, what were they doing in our police stations?
Can we also pursue them in the
We have
absolutely.
We do have the right of hot pursuit. Do we?
Would the Ethiopians allow us to go 10 kilometers?
It's not about allowing, it's
question.
about pursuing our domestic rebels who take sanctuary across the border. But if we're talking about al-Shabaab, let's keep the suggestion on al-Shabaab.
Okay.
Because I thought you were going to ask, al-Shabaab had just attacked and killed 60 Ethiopian troops in Somalia. And now they've also killed 35 to 50 Burundi troops in Somalia. They've overrun a Somali National Army base near Kismayo.
Okay. Let's get into that on the other side of the break. We have to take a short break right now. You're watching Standing on Guard here on AM Live. Remember also, just as always, you get to drive the show with me. You can call in, ask questions, or share your contribution. Hit us on Twitter as well. AM Live NTV is the Twitter handle. AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 20505, our SMS portal. Don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break. Welcome back. You're watching Standing on Guard here on AM Live. If you've been watching the show with any regularity, you must have realized every Wednesday we are talking Homeland Security. Now, the East African Standby Force, comprising troops from 10 member states, has attained the full operational capacity and is ready for deployment to respond to crises and security challenges. 5,300 troops, 400 individual police officers and military observers from Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Comoros, Seychelles, Somalia, Ethiopia and Djibouti have been confirmed and verified into the force. The force is expected to respond to terrorist attacks, genocide and other forms of organized crimes with approval from the African Union. The operationalization of the force will require 17 billion shillings annually, an amount that is expected to be raised by member states.
A really tangible force, fully equipped with armaments, have men and armaments ready to be used as per the request of African Union, of a mandate from African Union or United Nations, or decision by the summit of ESF.
And I'm holding court with Dr. Apollo Mashara, who's a criminologist from Egerton University. Also, we have Professor Noah Midamba, Vice Chancellor, KCA University, Professor for Defense and Foreign Policy. And also, we have Andrew Franklin, who is a security expert, and Dr. Mustafa Ali, who is an expert on conflict transformation. Gentlemen, you've seen that clip. Of course, we're trying to boost security around the region. What did you take about that particular story that we just did?
Yeah, I think we need this kind of a standby force which can be deployed quite rapidly in a situation that is increasingly becoming desperate. But what will be a mark of success of this kind of a force is the political will to actually deploy this force. I mean, we've seen a place like Burundi where somebody has decided that he's going to go for a third term, and then the situation became very bad, almost bordering an all-out conflict. Would the African Union or the East African community allow for that kind of a force to be deployed, say, against a head of state that has decided to misbehave in the region? So the political will...
You're being diplomatic with the misbehave.
I mean, diplomatically misbehave local. I mean, we saw how Salva Kiir and Riek Machar misbehaved. Both misbehaved in South Sudan, killing their own people. And you know, they also have to accept to receive this kind of a force to pacify a situation that is quickly evolving or getting out of control. And the African Union, we've seen also in the past that the African Union in most of the times actually went all the way to protect sitting heads of state or politicians who hold sway on the African Union. I think if the force is going to be deployed objectively and that there will be no political interference, and that is key, I think it's going to be successful, and I think it's a timely move by the regional countries to actually have this regional force.
Let me rope in Professor Midamba, because we can't see a conflict of interest here. We are actually putting together forces from different countries. Let's take, for instance, Kenya and Ethiopia. The same troops within the 5,300. Ethiopians are here now attacking police posts in the country, 10 trucks. How do you expect them to work harmoniously, knowing that, oh, there was a breach of security somewhere in their country, and here we are with you now trying to protect the region? This is an oxymoron, sort of.
I agree with Mustafa in the sense that, one, it makes sense to have a standby force that can react to any different situation whenever it occurs. But we have to be really fundamental. We have to address the fundamental. Who's going to pay for it? Who is real political commitment to pay for this massive force? Secondly, what is the actual mission? If the mission is to pacify a leader like a Burundi, then we are off the mark.
Do we have a strategy in place, first of all, or we just launched?
We have a strategy in place.
Yes.
And you know, Tanzania and Kenya better be speaking the same language, and all others. Otherwise, I really have a problem. I think Amazon is depending on a lot of support from outside Africa right now for it to function. Amazon is doing as good as you can expect. You know, I'm surprised about some of their success. But if you talk about the East African standby force, we better be ready, and we better understand the fundamental.
Yeah, we just don't want to see this also taper off with time, because there's no strategy, there's no political will. Also, there is no finances actually to actually sustain this particular standby force in the long run. Okay, let's take in a caller who's hanging on the line. We have George Kanyeru. Good morning, George.
Yes.
Morning to you.
Morning, Dibar.
Morning.
Yes.
You have a question or contribution?
I think I have a contribution.
Please.
First, I want to thank the panel. The debate is going on very well. But I think the victim here, the major victim of terrorism is the civilian. And I think it is important as experts talk about terrorism for the system or the government to address or to somehow create some awareness to the public. I was thinking some people are saying, imagine 800 students being attacked by 5 guys and they cannot resist. They cannot actually raise any resistance. So I think it is important for our people, the masses, to have some awareness, to have some security training. Because terrorists not just attack military bases, police stations, they are attacking civilians. The easy target is the civilian. We do not know how to detect these guys. We do not have any skills on any resistance. And they don't come in masses. They don't come like military with tanks and lorries.
Yes.
Just appear 2 or 3 of them with guns and all that. So I think the major person here to be involved in those conferences is the civilian. There must be some awareness. There must we must learn how to defend ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I think George raises a very important aspect here, where we are seeing the new terror spectacular. It's not really a lot of militiamen coming to particular places and attack. We have a very low-tech, a very low-scale, high-impact sort of attack. Case in point, what really happened in Tunisia? One man gunning down almost 40 people in the beach. Talk of Saif. Look at Garissa now. What happened in Garissa? How many were there? There were 3. So it is not about, large, should I say, horde of militiamen who are actually coming to attack, but it's sort of just 3 or 1 man who's doing this, right? And this is actually, I don't know how our strategy will be to sort of respond to this new terror spectacular that we are seeing, low-tech, high-impact sort of attack. Apollo.
Thank you. Now, that's Kaniaru has expressed a very good view, because very far away from Nairobi, in a place where my mother lives, in Laikipia, she gets worried every day on Saturday when she goes to church, because metal detectors must be made on her. Then she's supposed to open her bag, her kiondo, so that they can check on what it has. Then she asks, why is it? You may be carrying a bomb. Something she has not thought about. So for her, intrapersonal conflict within her is great, but you can't see it because it isn't manifest. But that latent conflict, that worry that I must be frisked every time I go, is very worrying to Kenyans. Again, some of the time when we teach in our universities, because some of our theaters are very large, you have a theater with 500 students, and these students come in and go, and there is only one exit. So when you are there teaching, and they come with ransacks, so you never know whether the guy is carrying a bomb, and you do not know him. So sometimes I wonder, if it ever happens in our universities, we shall all die. In fact, Garissa University will be a shout spray. So I don't know how we need to think through so that we get structures in place for us to prevent some of this.
We have a very interesting also development. We have also students now, recruits of Al-Shabaab from the universities. This was a report also on the front cover of a Star yesterday. I don't know what maybe the academicians, the scholars, are doing right now to try and also grapple with this. You say you want to be enrolled in this because the government is not even working with the universities, the institutions. Now, this is a handy opportunity for you as well.
Deborah, at this point, there absolutely no justification why University of Nairobi should not have their own police. There's no justification why Kenyatta should not have their own police. There's no justification why most of university should not have that. And the reason why I'm talking about is the signs have been there for a long time. These folks are looking for soft target. We don't know exactly who is our student, where they come from, what are their intentions. We don't know who are the faculty member, even. So I'm teaching my people on campus to watch out, watch your side, watch left, and know who is it that you are talking to and what is particularly different about this individual you are talking to. We have a campus security team that is analyzing everything to look at our vulnerability and develop a clear campus plan that will respond to that. I am actually having armed police on campus, which I'm paying for. Now, the question is, it's going to come anywhere. It's going to come in the church. It's going to come in any institution because they're vulnerable. And these people very well trained to have a massive impact at a given time. And therefore, every sector of Kenya, including our counties, the small little church, everyone need to be sensitive, need to be aware exactly of what to do. How is one person killing so many people? And how, in fact, in Garissa, what if the students had the tactics of moving using everything, including chairs, to hit that person?
All right. Allow me to just take in before we could come to you, Franklin. Just hold on to your thought. We have Steve who's hanging on the line. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Steve. Hello, good morning, Steve. I think we've lost Steve. We'll come back to him much later. Yes, Hunter.
Deborah, there's a certain high level of hysteria being introduced here, it seems, that we are all at risk. We don't know which direction they're coming from. I think a lot of this stems from the fact that we don't look at what's happened at Westgate. We don't look at what happened twice in Mandera. We're not asking about what happened at Garissa University, where an infantry battalion is stationed outside the gates, where there's a tank unit that was outside the gates, where there are probably several hundred police assigned in and around Garissa, who waited all day for a SWAT team to arrive from Nairobi. The notion that students should be throwing chairs at guys with AK-47s or RPD light machine guns makes no sense to me, especially when you have a tank unit outside the gates, you have an infantry battalion, and yet we don't know exactly why no one was deployed into the campus at 7 in the morning.
They're waiting for instructions.
No, that's not what you do when you're in uniform. You don't wait for instructions. You're supposed to take action. If you're the senior officer on the scene, look, when I was 21 years old, I learned this at Officer Candidate School, at the basic school in Quantico. If you're the senior officer on the scene, do something, Lieutenant. You're responsible for everything your unit does or fails to do. In this country, we have lost sight of the fact that people are not held accountable for failing to act, failing to save our students who are being massacred all day while a SWAT team is coming from Nairobi. There's no excuse for 600 trained KDF troops to be around the campus. There's no excuse for the tanks to just roll up around 11:30 or noon. In other words, what were the officers doing that whole day, April 2nd? What were they doing with all their rifles, their Kevlar, their helmets, and their training that they get from the British, the United States, and others? If we don't understand that 4 terrorists who take over the campus and are given free rein on the campus for 7, 8, 9 hours, that's a leadership problem. That is a failure that we have in our security forces. Now, you've also moved saying we don't have hordes of militiamen. In fact, we do have hordes of militiamen. Since the middle of May, we have units of 50, 60. The people who attacked, the militiamen, the terrorists who attacked the KDF base in Lamu, the first time a KDF base was attacked by al-Shabaab inside our borders, no, the figures range in excess of 100 armed men who attempted to assault, did assault and attempted to overrun our camp at Bori. Now, they were beaten off by the KDF, which I would expect. I would hope, the KDF knows how to fight if they're properly led.
Right.
But these are two separate problems. We have a 4-man team goes into a university and starts killing students and seemingly getting away until a SWAT team shows up.
Okay, we need to finally look at the response, look at the prevention. First of all, preparedness, prevention. Then we have response and recovery. How do they use these pointers to actually make sure they secure the place even after the aftermath of the attack? the recovery process.
Well,
on it?
Debar,
We've seen
what we
many
need is
people are not compensated.
Debar, what we really need is a Kenya standby force.
Kenya
composed
standby
of
force.
KDF and police.
And
who
they
are-
need to be prepared.
and prepared, and they have a standard
They
operating
need to
procedure.
have prevention
and
strategy.
and once we have that, we
All
can
right.
then have conferences on countering violent
by
extremism, fighting radicalization.
So we're putting
and maybe
the cart
spending
before the horse
money on
with
an
the
East African
conferences.
standby brigade.
Dr. Ali will tell us more about that. We have Steve who's hanging on the line. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, you have a question or a contribution, please?
Just a contribution, sir.
Please, kindly keep it brief.
Okay.
Continue.
Good morning.
Morning.
Fine, thank you.
All right, go on with your contribution,
Just a
please.
contribution.
Yes, yes.
I think the standby force is a good geopolitical strategy. Good morning. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Steve, we can hear you. Go on.
Well, it's intra-regional. It will bring intra-regional cohesion.
Yes.
But we should look at issues of humanitarian or genocidal scenarios as opposed to first. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Steve. We've got the gist of your point. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah. Also, the issue of humanitarian side of it is, I think, a huge component. Especially, we've seen the human rights group reacting, especially even in Somalia right now. That we have civilians who are affected by this war. But as we're winding up, we want to look, yes, at preparedness. We want to look at prevention, response, and recovery. And I know we can talk a host of so many things within these components, especially the preparedness. Yeah? There's a general feeling that there isn't adequate preparation, and most of the time our officers are caught unawares and ill-equipped. That is the general feeling. Then we have the interoperability between agencies. And this case in point is what really happened at Westgate, right? We have friendly fires. We have, who should go first? Is it the Reke squad or the police officers? I mean, there is nothing that was seamlessly flowing when it came to the command that was coming from the top security officers in this country. Then, lack of a national crisis committee, which will convene in the event of a terrorist attack to try and coordinate events. We wouldn't even be having issues of transport where we don't have a chopper to be deployed, right? Where we don't have enough manpower to rescue people on the ground. A bit of on the preparedness.
Yeah, let me just two quick points here, and one is the preparedness.
Yes.
And I want to talk about preparedness, psyche in the context of preparedness, the national psyche, and terrorists. When they are attacking, their immediate target or their primary target is not the people that they are targeting. It's not the body count. It is the effects that will come out of that body count, and that is to terrorize the population. And so the way we respond as Kenyans to that actually determines whether the terrorists are succeeding or they are not succeeding. And we first must be defiant on the face of the terrorists, so that however many people they are going to kill, we should not be terrorized. We should not appear to be terrorized. And this takes me to the second point of preparedness. We have to educate and create awareness among the Kenyan population about the effects of terrorism. Why is it that they're doing what they want to do? How can we actually prevent this kind of actions?
Why the first place
let me move on to the second point. The second point is to prevention. It is impossible, and we've seen this from Westgate,
Yes.
Garissa, Mandera, that the level of our own preparedness is not to the point that we'll be able to deploy very quickly. I hope the the security agencies are working on that, particularly on the interoperability of the forces. But at the end of the day, if we are really going to prevent terrorist attacks, they have to be prevented before they happen. Once they happen, that's it. And therefore, it's got to be intelligence-led. We have to boost our intelligence gathering, analysis, and to prevent the terrorists on the attack before they attack.
All right, Apollo, as we're winding up,
Yes,
then
and,
just prepare your headline thoughts,
for me,
Franklin and Andrew. Yeah.
The response is actually affected by politics and the power plays at the level.
response.
Yeah, because there is usually a crisis of command. There is a crisis of recruitment, a crisis of deployment. If we have the East African Standby Force, and we have been having a small outfit here in Langata, which I don't know what it has been doing over the years. Even the people who are in Kisimayu, for you to be deployed there, you must be in good talking terms with some of the bosses. Because as you are going there, it is manifest. So if you are being sent to Kisimayu, for you it is not duty. It is the amount of money you are going to earn in AMISON or in the East African Standby Force. So when they go there, they don't have that big commitment because we send the wrong people. We recruit them badly, we deploy them badly. Unless there is a political will to take qualified people, we shall continue moving in circles. And the East African Standby Force we are talking about, AU has no money, IGAD has no money. There is a crisis of funds. So we are very good on paper. But when it comes to response, that's why you hear some of our aircraft are going to Mombasa to take girlfriends, or I don't know, girlfriends or whatever, instead of studying on guard. So what we do most of the time is sleeping on guard because we are a crisis-driven country. In the University of Egerton, when it happened, we had security. Now, looking at everybody, our cars were being opened, the students' bags were being... But now, that happened for a week or so. Now, it's, it's routine as usual. Nothing happens. So we deal with the crisis after the crisis. So when it happens, we shall now react.
All right. Professor.
The nation preparedness is highly dependent on its people, its constituents, organs of government. And that's why Paul and I can disagree about the role of national versus the county. But the county, and counties are different. The county in Garissa is different with county of Busia in terms of need and responsibility. And we need to focus on those, what we call the red line counties that are highly vulnerable, okay? And then we need to make sure that whether it's the church leader, the mosque, leader, the institution, like from primary school to high school to university, are prepared. And we have all kind of examples, particularly in the United States and Israel, that we can emulate from. And the command and control system must be able to synchronize with each other. And that's what's not happening right now.
Right. Andrew, your headline thoughts.
Well, Kenya is at a crossroads where we are facing either 2 to 3 years of tipping over the edge into permanent insecurity. That is, by doing business as usual, by having conferences, by not reorganizing our security forces in accordance with our own laws. Or conversely, we could head down the road if we would accept that we have a genuine insurgency inside our borders, that in 3 to 5 years we could in fact defeat al-Shabaab inside the borders, and we could stabilize Somalia across the border. But this is dependent on the government of Kenya accepting that we have a serious existential threat to national security that needs a Kenyan solution. And the Western allies will be more than happy to stump up the funds and training if the Kenyan government would say, we want to close the border, we want a strong national defense. But until we accept that we do have this insurgency and that we're not part of some amorphous war on terror, and we concentrate on getting our own house in order, we'll never defeat al-Shabaab.
Yes.
And we will be in permanent insecurity in 2 to 3 years.
Right. Dr. Ali.
Yeah, I think we need to build resilience. We have to build our resilience to defeat violent extremism, to contain violent extremism. It is in doing so that we are going to be successful. We have to be tenacious in our response. The population has got to be on guard. we have to ensure that the information that can prevent any terrorist attack is passed on to the police and the security agencies, and the security agencies will need to act on that information while protecting those that have given that information.
And I think also we've just touched on the preparedness, the national terrorism public alert system. You know, also we lack none in the country, and I think that also would be a good point to pick up next time, where we shall continue this conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate your valuable insight here on trying to make sure that, yes, we have a very secure country, and I hope also the government officials are listening in and they will take the appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, I want also to bring to your attention, especially what is happening to our young children when it comes to keep them secure in the homes. We have people who are actually taking advantage of our young ones in the home. The pedophiles. Sheila Sadio has that story.